Hello, fabulous listeners. This is your host, Brian Peterson, and this episode is going to be me flying solo. And I wanted to give some reflection on a 100-mile race that I have coming up on September 15th. That race is Run Rabbit Run 100 Miler in Steamboat Springs, Colorado. Today is August 16th, and just looking at the dates, it looks like I'm about a month out. But if you break down the weeks, I have about 4.5 more weeks of training. And I like to do a 1 week taper. So the way I'm looking at that is 3.5 more weeks of training with a 1 week taper to make that 4.5 weeks away. And I've been building up my training pretty slowly and starting to do some bigger and harder stuff. Part of that is last week I went backpacking in the Sierra Nevada in California and did an off-trail route with my wife. And that was something that had a lot of elevation gain. It was not running, but I was on my feet about 10 miles a day. And coming back from that, I'm pretty tight. Like I think that my calves, my Achilles tendons, they're really, really tight. I've never had them be this tight before. And so I'm running very cautiously right now. I'm still running every day, still hitting what I want to do. But I'm very, very tight. And so I'm doing a lot of stretching and maintenance and taking care of myself. So let me talk about how I approach a 100-mile race. So this race, Run Rabbit Run, is on September 15th. And so I started training 3.5 months in advance. And I'd probably start this looking back. That's something that has worked for me, but I think I would actually just do a 4-month training plan now, just round that right up to 4 months. And the way that I approach my training is I look at my training in terms of time. I don't look at pace. I don't look at how many miles I run a day. I wish I could look at how much elevation gain I get on each run, but I live in Kansas, which is a challenge. I love doing mountain ultramarathons. I'm very curious about running Hardrock 100. So I'm always choosing 100 milers to get my qualifier for Hardrock 100. And I've been qualifying since 2013, which is 10 years back, but 2 of those years, Hardrock did not happen. That was due to COVID. And then the following year due to avalanche destruction on the course. So for this 3.5 months of training, I started off with doing a month. I had a month block. And in that first month, which took place from May 1st until June 1st, let me count that out. Was it May 1st or June 1st? It was June 1st. Starting June 1st, I started running an hour every single day. And I ran that all the way through. And I only took 1 day off in June. I love staying very, very consistent. That is something that I really put a mindset to myself and say, stay disciplined, stay consistent, keep those legs moving every single day, even if it just means a 30-minute run. But through June, I ran an hour every single day except for 1 day. And then in July, starting July 1st, I bumped up to an hour and a half every single day. And this is where I wish I had done a 4-month buildup. And I did an hour and a half every single day. And then I went and paced my buddy out at Hardrock, Paul Jesse, who on All Bodies Outside, we did some reflections for his pre-race and his post-race. And so there's a pre-race interview out there and a post-race interview out there. I recommend listening to them. During that time, though, in July, I was actually kind of nervous going out to pace him at Hardrock. This was a race that he had been looking forward to for quite some time. I wanted to make sure that I did a good job pacing. Additionally, I was his pacer that was going to get him to the finish line. I ran about the last 20 miles with him. So starting July 1st, I started running an hour and a half every single day. Again, not worrying about pace, not worrying about how many miles I ran, but I was a little bit concerned about elevation gain. And so I would, with living in Kansas, go over to my local high school football field and run bleachers and do stuff like that to kind of get some elevation gain. There's a golf course here too that has some elevation gain. I'd run there. There's a little park with about 2.5 miles called Mount Mitchell. I'd get a little bit of elevation gain there. When I'm talking about little elevation gain, I'm talking about maybe 200 to 300 feet per run. I mean, it's not much. It is what it is, and I've gotten through it before. So I did it for the 2 weeks going up to Hardrock on July 15th. From July 1st to July 15th, I ran an hour and a half every single day. I then went out to Hardrock and paced Paul. I took a day off coming back from Hardrock. And then I ran the rest of July 2 hours. I ran one more week of an hour and a half. And then the rest of July, I ran 2 hours every single day. And I ran 2 hours every single day until I took off for backpacking on August 5th. And I went backpacking in the Sierra Nevada on August 5th. And when I got back from backpacking, that's August 12th, which is a Saturday. I actually took that Friday and Saturday off. So I had 2 more days off. So I'm now up to 4 days off since June 1st. Today's August 16th. I've only taken 4 days off of running. And I got back from backpacking on August 12th on a Saturday. And on that Sunday, I ran 2 hours. Now, this puts me at this backpacking trip was great. It had elevation gain. I was on my feet the whole day, but it also had a nice time marker. Coming back from backpacking, I have 5 weeks until my race. So that meant 4 weeks of training and then my 1 week taper. So it's time. This is where I really cluster in all my training, get the hard stuff in. So for this week, again, I only focus on how much time I run. I'm going to run 18 hours this week, which is a lot of volume. It is. I'm currently not running very hard. I'm running pretty slow. I've got a lot of aches and pains. I just can't figure it out. But I seem to be getting looser and looser each day, which is nice. Really, like my calves and Achilles tendons, I just don't know what happened there. I think it's something that is stemming from my glutes, because when I've been stretching my calves out, I feel it all the way up into the core of each glute. So if I'm stretching my right calf, I feel it all the way in the core up to my right glute. If I'm stretching my left calf out, I feel it all the way up to the core of the left glute. Additionally, my right foot, in the foot, it just has pain kind of going across. It's nothing significant. It's a very dull pain. So I don't know what's up with that, but I've run, today is Wednesday, and starting this week, I ran 3 hours on Monday, 3 hours on Tuesday, and I'll run 3 hours today. Now, how did I run those 3 hours? So Monday, I did 2 hours in the morning and 1 hour that afternoon from like 4:30 to 5:30. Yesterday, I actually did 3 runs. I did 2 hours in the morning, 30 minutes of lunch, 30 minutes after work. It's very easy for me to get that 2-hour run in the morning. I will get up at 5 a.m. and I'll try to leave my house between 5:15, 5:30. And luckily I'm working remote right now. So if I leave at 5:30, I'm back home by 7:30. And I pop on email right away. And so I'm on email starting around 7:35. And I get going for the workday. Now, you probably kind of just caught that. You're like, hey, Brian, you get back from running at 7:30 and you're on your email 5 minutes later. Are you really taking good care of yourself? And so, yes, I do stretch, and yes, I do maintenance. And there's 2 primary stretches that I do on before and after every single run. And I have identified these stretches through years of training. And I've been a runner since elementary school. I ran in elementary school, I ran in high school, I ran in college, and I've been running ultramarathons for quite a while now, for 10 years. And there's 2 stretches that just seem to always put me in the right place. And so I do them in combination for a minute total before I run. And I do them in combination for a minute total after I run. And these are a sumo stretch. So if you imagine a sumo wrestler standing at the start of their sparring, their fight, whatever it's called, and they have kind of their forearms on their legs and have a very wide stance, and their hamstrings are parallel to the ground. I do that for about 10 to 15 seconds, and I'll do seated chair pose with my hamstrings parallel to the ground too. And I just go back and forth until I've done that for a minute. I do that before the run, I do that after my run, and I do that for every single run. And I have found that it has kept me injury free. I'm not a person that gets injured. It's a rare thing. I'm typically able to work through some muscle imbalances, whatever it is, to be flexible and be able to move very freely. Right now, I'm definitely feel like I'm walking a line. I'm concerned about myself. So I'm doing some extra stretches with my calves because they're so sore. And I'm just doing classic calf stretches, which seem to be helping. I've been running, coming back from backpacking. I think that I just got really tight out there with carrying that backpack, which usually isn't the case for me. I don't know what happened, but I've been running Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and then today's Wednesday. And out of those 4 days of running so far, today I was able to start off the most loose, and that felt fantastic. So this week I'm looking to do 18 hours total. Okay. And right now I have counting this week, 4 weeks of training until my race. Next week, I have 3 weeks of training and then a 1 week taper. So next week, I want to run 18 hours again. I want to run 18 hours each of these 4 weeks leading up to my race and then a 1 week taper. But each week has kind of something different to kind of keep me motivated and excited. So next week, I'll run 18 miles total, but on Saturday, I'm going to run 50 miles, and that's going to be 50 miles. It'll be, I think, 3 weekends out from my race, 3 Saturdays out from my race, if I'm calculating that right. And I've been a person that I love doing a 50 miler 2 weeks out from my race. That has been something that's been very successful for me. I've done that and I just love it. It puts me right in the place. Now, I was not able to find a 50 miler 2 weeks out from my race. So I'm going to do this on my own. I've never done a 50 miler on my own, so that kind of excites me. I'm sure it's going to be kind of monotonous and whatnot. I'm just putting together. I'm going to an area called Kanza Biological Station, and they got a variety of loop trails, and I'm just going to be changing it up as much as I can. And then my car will be the aid station. I'll have one aid station. I'll have 2 ice chests in it with food, with water, with Gatorade, all kinds of stuff. And I'll do 50 miles. And hopefully that takes me about 8 to 9 miles. So that week, I'm looking to do 18 hours. Well, half of it, or close to half of it, will be done on that Saturday. So that's next week. So this week, like I said, I'm just doing 18 miles, kind of breaking it up into 2 to 3 hours per day. Next week, it'll look a little bit different because I'm going to have that big long run on Saturday. And I'm going to make sure that I still maintain my consistency with running. And so that is, I'm not going to be taking the day off before the 50 miler. I'm not going to be taking the day off after the 50 miler. I want to push right through it. The following week, which means I have 2 weeks left of training and then the 1 week taper, I'm also going to have a big weekend. I'm going to go out to Buena Vista, Colorado, and I need to get elevation gain in. I'm running the Run Rabbit Run 100 miler in Steamboat Springs, Colorado. It's a mountainous race. And living in Kansas, this is something that really affects me. It's not really the uphill. It's actually the downhill that gets me. So I did Bighorn in 2021, and I had a hard time with the downhill in the last 10 miles. I mean, I had a really hard time and I just couldn't do it. And so I'm hoping to overcome that. So the weekend after my 50 miler, I'm going to go out to Buena Vista, Colorado. I'm going to do Mount Princeton and Mount Yell, but I'm going to do their kind of off trail, more steep, more scrambly routes. And so in Buena Vista for Princeton, I'm going to do that that Saturday. I'm going to do the Southwest Ridge, and it's about 3 miles up to the peak with 5,000 feet of gain. So I'll have 5,000 feet up, 5,000 feet down, and that's 3 miles up, 3 miles down. The next day, I'm going to do Mount Yell, and I forget what the elevation gain is and the amount of miles, but something similar like that. It's going to be real steep up and down, and I'm really looking forward to that down section because that's what I really need for my training. Let me take this a step back. So Buena Vista, I'm going to be going out there for Labor Day weekend. I'll be out there Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. That Friday, I'll be arriving mid-afternoon. I'm going to do an hour and a half on the Colorado Trail on a part that I know has some good uphill. Saturday, Mount Princeton. Sunday, Mount Yell, and then drive home on Monday. And before I drive home, I'll do an hour and a half run in Buena Vista, probably just around their city trails to save some time. So I don't want to drive to a trailhead or anything like that. Now, when I get back from Buena Vista, I will have 1 more week of solid training, 1 more week of getting that 18 hours in, 1 more week of staying every day consistent, and then into my taper week. And with that week, that Saturday, I have a 50K that I'm doing. It's a local 50K. It's flat. It's in Kansas. It doesn't have a lot of uphill or downhill. But again, that will be something that kind of just excites me for training that week, to go have a fun 50K, go interact with the awesome community here of runners, and get in my 18 hours. So let me repeat all this in a different way. Coming back from backpacking, I have 4 weeks of training, 1 week of taper. Each of those 4 weeks, I want to run 18 hours. And each of those 4 weeks, I want to throw in some different types of activities I can do on the weekends to help me prepare for Run Rabbit Run. Now, the week of my taper, the race is on a Friday. I will not be running on Thursday. I will not be running on Wednesday. And on Monday and Tuesday, I'll probably run an hour and a half each day at a slow jog. Now, those 2 days include them taking off Wednesday and Thursday. And then I also took off 2 days after backpacking, 1 day after pacing Paul, and 1 day in June. So that's going to be out of 3.5 months, 7 days off from running. And I hope that, and this has always worked for me, taking 2 days off before my race, my legs aren't used to that. They're used to the consistency. And so my recovery is just there and I'm ready to rock. So hopefully this is something that gets me ready for Run Rabbit Run. My biggest lack of confidence with Run Rabbit Run is going into elevation and the elevation gain, primarily because I know that my legs break down on the downhill. Now, in terms of acclimation for the elevation, I'm hoping the race starts on a Friday. I'm hoping to drive out there on Tuesday, but it's not looking possible. And that's just how it goes. But I'll definitely be able to drive out, leave Kansas early Wednesday morning, and get over to Colorado as soon as possible and start acclimating to some altitude. So I'll have a full day Wednesday, full day Thursday. Race starts at noon on Friday. So it's really not enough time. I wish I can get out there Tuesday, but it is what it is. Okay, so for Run Rabbit Run, this is a Hardrock qualifier. I've been doing Hardrock qualifiers since 2013. My first one was Tahoe 100. And at the time, it was a Hardrock qualifier. It no longer is. I did that in 2013. I also in 2013 did another 100-miler called Chimera, which is in Southern California and has the elevation gain of a Hardrock qualifier, but is not at elevation, so it's not a Hardrock qualifier. My next qualifier after Tahoe was the Bear 100, and then I did the Wasatch 100, and then I did Grindstone 100 in Virginia, and then I did Bighorn 100 in Wyoming, and now Run Rabbit Run. Now, I have a couple streaks that I am trying to keep alive at Run Rabbit Run. First one is every ultramarathon that I have entered, I have finished. And that's something that is, I don't know how that streak got going, but it's something that I want to keep alive. And so it really is important for me to be taking care of myself through training, but to also be training adequately and preparing adequately. And now living in Kansas, like I said, I have a couple things that I can't do. I can't get elevation gain. I can't acclimate to the elevation. Trying to get downhill in. There's some good downhill at Kanza that I mentioned earlier. So I really try to focus on the laps and the areas that there are downhill. In terms of elevation and acclimating to that elevation, I've thought about getting like a mask and stuff like that. But I honestly, I did Bighorn in 2021, which isn't quite as elevated as Run Rabbit Run, but it is elevated. And I did just fine there. And so people say that, roughly speaking, Bighorn is roughly as hard and challenging as Run Rabbit Run and vice versa. So and honestly, I'm training a lot harder for Run Rabbit Run than I did for Bighorn in 2021. So I'm hoping everything's going to be okay, but it's a 100-mile race and you never know how it's going to go on race day. Now, on race day, I wanted to talk about a little bit of my strategy. And there's 5 things that I really focus on with my strategy. The first one is going out slow. I go out and I start the race and I pretend it's mile 80. And so I ask myself the question at the start line, Brian, what pace are you going to be running at mile 80? What's that going to feel like? Okay, now run it for 80 miles. And that's exactly what I do. And the reason I say 80 miles is instead of 75, I've kind of actually thought about 75 miles or 80 miles. 75 miles, there's always kind of a little bit of a boost there because 25 miles left. I guess you could say that about mile 80, but I perceive myself as being a little bit slower at mile 80 than mile 75. And so I use that mindset. Okay, if that's the pace I'm going to run at mile 80, then I'm running for the first 80 miles. And now the reason that is important is because of my caffeine plan. I do not use any substances with caffeine, like coffee and whatnot, the week leading up to the race. And I try to even extend it a little bit further, maybe 8 or 9 days. And I wait until mile 75 to have any caffeine. So I'll wait until mile 75 to have coffee or caffeinated salt tablets. And usually what I like to do is have a thermos of coffee that I've made, put it in my drop bag and have it waiting at mile 75. And then from there on out, I take a caffeinated salt tablet every hour. And that usually zooms me into the finish. And I'm able to finish strongly. And so that's my caffeine plan. So start off the race like it's mile 80 and just hang on. Just stay patient. Don't worry what other people are doing. Don't worry that other people are going to be going way faster than me, and just hang on until mile 75 when I get that caffeine and then finish strongly. And that has worked for me every single time. Now, some other little tricks I do is I do have a small ibuprofen plan, and that is I take ibuprofen at mile 50 and I take it at mile 75. Nothing else than that. As I kind of alluded to earlier with my salt plan is I take regular salt tablets every hour, and then I switch it to caffeinated salt tablets at mile 75 every hour. Now, I will take more salt per an hour if I'm feeling the aches and pains or like I'm getting a cramp, and then I will take it every 30 minutes. And that happens here and there. And then in terms of food, I just eat food as needed. And I try to actually eat whole foods, really focus on good stuff. I love having fruits like watermelon, cantaloupe, nuts, bananas, stuff like that. Every now and then I'll sneak like an Oreo or some pretzels or potatoes, salted potatoes. And that's always worked for me. I've never had stomach issues through my races. Now at Run Rabbit Run, I will be seeing my wife Jessa a couple times right around mile 50. I'm going to have her pass me a Gatorade. Gatorade tends to work really well for me in a race. And so I will have her pass me a liter and I'll pound that. That's something that gives me some energy. Also, I'll have 2 drop bags out there. It's actually 1 drop bag at the same location that I go by twice. And in that drop bag, I'll have Noon tablets, and I'll use those to also kind of just get some extra electrolytes in me, and just drop those in my water bottles. Now with Run Rabbit Run, I haven't fully prepared and gone over all the logistics of the race, but I plan on running the first 30 miles with 2 handheld water bottles. And that's because the race starts at noon. And then it's eventually going to be getting dark pretty early. And around mile 30 is when I'll be coming across my drop bag. And I'm going to pick up my vest. And in my vest, I'm already going to have stored my headlamp, my waist light, a rain jacket, a buff, gloves, maybe a long sleeve shirt. I'm just going to put that on. And I'm thinking I'll probably finish the race a little bit before noon or so. But I'm thinking I'll probably end up running the rest of the race with my race vest on. Now during Run Rabbit Run, I've not really run that. I prefer 2 handholds, so it'll be a new thing for me to run that long with a race vest on, which I think is good training. Actually, I think it'll be cool for kind of seeing what it's like to wear that vest the entire time in terms of preparing for Hardrock. At Run Rabbit Run 2, I'll be doing a couple new things, and that is I got a new headlamp. I got one of those Petzl ones that are pretty popular right now. I don't even know the name of the model, but it has a small little rechargeable battery that looks like a rectangle. And I plan on using this thing on high. And so I'm just going to change out the battery every single time I go by my drop bag or I go by my wife when it's the nighttime. And that should be in 3 to 4 hour increments, maybe even a little bit less. But I have enough batteries now to get me through. Additionally, thanks to the advice of Don Reichelt, I picked up a waist light from Ultraspire, and I'm going to be using that too through the night. I've never used that before, so I'm excited to maybe be a little more safe, be able to have better footing due to that waist light. And that's something it has rechargeable batteries, so I'm just going to be using that. I'm going to be replacing the rechargeable batteries at the same time as I'm doing the headlamp ones, and that'll be when I come across my drop bag and when I see my wife, and it should be anywhere between 3 to 4 hour increments. So that is my update about Run Rabbit Run and going into it, and kind of how I prepare. I have 2 streaks that I am keeping alive there. I think I focused on one earlier, forgot to mention the second one. But those 2 streaks are I finished every ultramarathon I've ever finished. And then for every 100-mile run, 100-mile ultramarathon that I have entered, I've gone sub 24. So I want to go sub 24. I want to finish. And I've had that sub 24 streak going on. I've already kind of mentioned my races, but I'll repeat them. That was at Tahoe 100, Chimera in Southern California, Bear 100 in Utah, Wasatch 100 in Utah, Grindstone 100 in Virginia, and Bighorn 100 in Wyoming. So it'll be nice to keep that streak alive, sub 24, and finishing every ultra at a Colorado race. So as you probably heard there, I have not run a 100-mile ultramarathon in Colorado, so I'm looking to keep that streak alive. Okay, well, that's it for Run Rabbit Run. Today's August 16th. The race is September 15th. I have half of the week. Today is a Wednesday. I have half of this week, and then 3 more solid weeks of training, and then the 1-week taper. And you might be asking yourself through this, Brian, the 1-week taper is so short. How could you do that to yourself? That 1-week taper comes about from when I was a high school and collegiate runner. I always felt like I was over tapered, and I didn't have the bang in my legs that I thought I should have for peaking. And I have found I've had great results with ultramarathons with doing a short taper. And a lot of that comes from, I was noticing when I reflected back on my high school races, my college races, that I had my best races in the middle of the year when I wasn't getting that taper, I wasn't getting that rest. And so I kind of wanted to recreate that, but give myself a little bit of rest. And so that's where the 1-week taper comes in. Okay, for anyone that has listened to this and is, loving ultramarathons, loving running, please leave me comments, messages, words of advice. Like, I could use them. Like, yeah, I've been running a bunch, but I could always use some advice. If you know about Run Rabbit Run, let me know. And for those of those listeners out there, I've been focusing a lot on running. Running is a great way to get outside. It's something that everyone can do. It just takes the right mindset. Everyone is a runner. And if you are like, hey, like, I'm not a runner, I recommend just start with running down your driveway and then walking a little bit past that. And then the next day, maybe do the same. Maybe the next day, do the same. After that, go a little bit further. After that, go a little bit further. And just take baby steps and get going longer and longer. Don't worry about time. Don't worry about distance. Don't worry about pace. Just go out there and set these digestible, achievable goals to get you to become a runner. It's just such a great thing. It's so satisfying. It's enjoyable. It's something that you can do on your own. You don't need others to help you go enjoy nature. And it's something that we all can do. You just got to have the right mindset. But keep in mind, yes, even if you're not going out and running every day right now, you are a runner. You can do it. And that's something that I think is a great way to get outside and connect with nature, and also the mission of this podcast, All Bodies Outside. Okay, everyone, thank you so much for listening. I apologize for doing a solo reflective episode, but I hope you enjoyed it. Bye.